Hi, and welcome back, everyone, to this week's episode of Kind of a Bitch. So, a couple of weeks ago, actually, I think at this point it's now a couple of months ago, let's be honest, the year is moving like absolute wildfire. We did an episode, you and me together, we did an episode, and it was all about how to cultivate more luck. And I got a lot of really great feedback. And honestly, doing that episode, doing the research, it made me think a lot about how I can cultivate more luck. And it, of course, got me thinking into manifesting and more about the habits of bringing good things into my daily life. And so I'd like to do a little series. Now, if you were with me a couple of weeks ago, actually, a couple of weeks ago, we did a mini series called Unshrinkable. And it was all about how not to or how to notice when you were starting to shrink or starting to shapeshift in any given situation. This one, I want to go a little bit deeper. And I think I'm going to call it something like the luck laboratory, right? Any of my 90s kids remember that cartoon? He said, to the laboratory. That's kind of what we're going to call it, the luck lab. And before we get into today's topic, just as a brief overview, I want to take a quick step back. In the first episode, all about cultivating luck, we explored the science of getting lucky. We learned that luck isn't totally magic. It's not something you're born with. It is a combination of openness, of noticing potential opportunities, and of then taking action. I talked a lot about the science, a lot of the studies with Dr. Richard Wiseman, and he talked about how lucky people, they see more chances. They trust their gut and their intuition, and they end up cultivating social networks, more social networks that bring continued opportunities. In short, like I said, luck is not something that you come into this world possessing. It is something you can create. So today, we're going to go a step deeper. We're talking about the mindset, the lens through which lucky people see the world, and how you and me, how and I can train our brains to notice, expect, and then to attract new opportunity. Let's go. Okay. So if you have not listened to the more recent episode about luck, if you need a total refresher, I'm going to start us off with a little bit of the research, a little bit of the science. If you don't know me, yes, my background is in musical theater. That is what I went to school for. But what I wanted to do before I went to school was I wanted to go into medicine. Yes, I love science. I love biology. I find that I do better when I understand the why behind how things happen or why things happen. And yes, there's not always a great, reason for that kind of thing, but I do like to know. So hopefully you are as fascinated with some of this research the way that I am. Let's start off with a little factity fact called the reticular activating system, the RAS. This piece of the brain is our brain's filter for opportunity. It's a thing that notices that opportunity. And the best example I could find for this is the red car phenomenon. I am sure that you have heard this. It's the idea that when you buy a red car, you start to notice, or if you want to buy a red car, I guess is what you should say. If you want to buy a red car, if that's something that you want for yourself, you start to notice red cars all over the place. Once you are looking, you start seeing that exact red car that you want everywhere. So again, it's this. It happened when we bought our car, right? When we bought our car, we got this kind of olivey green, almost black Honda CRV. And I said to myself, I've never seen anything like it. Well, now I get lost in the parking lot trying to find my car because I see my car everywhere. And that is the RAS getting activated, noticing. Okay. Lucky people are using their reticular activating system, and they've trained their brains to notice those chance moments that a lot of people might particularly overlook. Okay. They don't wait for luck. They find it. They see it out in the world. There was a TikTok phenomenon that happened a while ago. I want to say it was last year or the year before, but it was talking about lucky girl syndrome. And it was this idea that if you go into the world expecting to get lucky, expecting that good things will happen to you, they will start to happen. And it's not because they wouldn't have happened to you already. It's because you are noticing, you are seeing them, you are aware of them, and you are almost attracting them because of that. I was actually having coffee with a friend a little while ago, and I think I've mentioned this in a previous episode, but she has a friend who, when good things happen, instead of being like, wow, how lucky am I? They say, of course. They say, of course. They get, a free coffee at the coffee shop. And not to the person, they're not saying this, but in their heads, they go, of course, good things are always happening to me. When they, go to the airport and they get upgraded, even if they weren't on the upgrade list, they go, of course, right? It's just this idea of retraining your brain to expect and to see that good stuff. Expecting good things increases motivation, and it increases persistence, and it increases creativity. Okay. This like optimism and expectancy. Something I love about the idea of optimism, or about optimism, is that I had read this study a long time ago. I have some friends who are very let's just say critical. Yeah, critical. I think that's the best way to go about it. Critical or cynical, perhaps. And I remember reading something that had said a lot of times people will think that being critical or cynical makes somebody smarter, right? We tend to idolize or respect people who are more critical or more cynical. But in fact, optimism is harder to cultivate. And so training yourself to be more optimistic, to notice that good stuff so that you can become more optimistic. It's just a cycle. It's going to make um, motivation become better. It's going to make you more persistent in pursuing that stuff, and it's going to create more creativity. So why not pursue more optimism in our lives? Now, additionally, if you listen to the last podcast, you'll remember one of the studies done by Dr. Weissman. And I cannot get over it. If you need a refresher, he did a study, and it was all about, he talked with self-proclaimed lucky people and self-proclaimed unlucky people, because he was trying to understand, what is the difference? Like what is actually happening with these two parties that is making one of them lucky, one of them unlucky. And he did the same experiments on both groups. And one of the experiments was, he had everybody read an article or a newspaper or a book. Truthfully, I can't totally remember, but it was multiple pages. And he asked them to identify a certain number of words, or a certain number of times a word was used, if I'm not mistaken. Now, again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because truthfully, I did not fact check myself right before I came onto this podcast. So you'll just have to stick with me here, team. But all of the people who considered themselves unlucky, they went through and they counted, 42 times, like this word was used 42 times. But then what he found with the lucky group, the self-proclaimed lucky group, is that they noticed, more of them, a higher number of them noticed on the second or third page of whatever this experiment was, that the sentence was written, this word was used 42 times. Right. So it called it out early so that they were done with the experiment faster. And then there was another one on a separate page, or maybe it was something earlier, that said something, if you notice this sentence, then you win $200, and like immediately tell the assistant and you'll win $200. Right. And so there is something about the unlucky people were so focused on not missing, They were so focused on avoiding disappointment that they could not see outside of the specific goal they had at hand. Whereas the people who were lucky were more open to opportunity, more open to novelty. And so they noticed this stuff. They were done with the experiment faster. They won money. It was a whole thing. And if you want to go read that exact experiment, by all means, please do. But again, it's just this idea that changing your mindset to be more open, more positive, and to train yourself to look for those special pieces, to look for the good stuff will help you out in the long run. Additionally, if we are touching on mindset, training your brain to be more optimistic and to filter for more opportunity, it creates more cognitive flexibility as well as curiosity. Like it lights that up. Flexible thinkers spot unconventional solutions and opportunities, just like in Dr. Weissman's research. Flexible thinkers spot unconventional solutions and opportunities. And as I'm saying this, like I have these notes that I'm kind of referencing. And as I'm saying this, I'm going, yeah, Liz, flexible thinkers spot unconventional solutions and opportunities. And I think about this with myself mere weeks ago when I was stuck in, my own head, trying to figure out a solution to a problem. But I was so focused on the problem that I couldn't see so many solutions. And in speaking with my therapist later, she was like, I guess I just don't understand why you didn't do X, Y, Z. And I was like, honestly, girl, I hadn't thought about it until you said it because I was so panicked. And so I think to myself, all right, how can I put myself in other situations where it's low stakes, so that I don't care as much? And for some reason, the immediate thing that came to mind was rock climbing. Do we think that's what I should do? You know what I'm saying? Go rock climbing. There's no stakes here. I can't lose at rock climbing because it's just me, myself, and I enjoying my life. But I'm saying to myself, well, if I start doing things like that, where I'm actually put in a position to look for opportunities, to look for the next literal step, the next handhold, perhaps I can train myself to look for more of that stuff in my real life. I don't know. More to come. I'll let you know if I try it. Let's talk about a couple of real world examples. Now, you might know a few of these, and I'm not going to go too deep into the stories because I'm sure you can look these up, and I'm sure these famous people have noted them all over the place. But in case you don't know them, here are just a few. So, do you know Richard Branson? Anyone aware of this? He is the Virgin Group founder, and he repeatedly took calculated risks, starting with like a student magazine, if I'm not mistaken, and then with Virgin Records. He attributes a lot of his success to saying yes to opportunities that a bunch of other people ignored because he often saw potential where others would see potential risk. Now, I will say one caveat there is that a lot of times, if Richard Branson, from what I understand, is a very well off human being. And so obviously, sometimes taking big risks does require you need to have a tolerance for risk. So, one small caveat there. But the idea of, again, seeing potential where others feel more fear is one of the reasons why he considers himself to be as successful as he is today. Another person is Sara Blakely. I'm sure you've seen her on Shark Tank or elsewhere. She is the founder of Spanx. Sara Blakely spotted a market, and she spotted it because she was experimenting on herself. She actually needed these things for herself. And she went door to door pitching her prototype and persisting, even though people were like, oh, heck no, that's not going to work. And so she talks a lot about how her openness and her persistence is what created opportunities for really big luck. And we're talking like distribution deals and investor interest, which often doesn't come for small founders. What about Airbnb founders, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia? I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right, so please come for me if it was wrong. So sorry. But they noticed an opportunity during a conference. All right. They were at a conference that was super sold out. And their whole thing is that they were trying to figure out how can we create something that has never been done before. So they attribute a lot of their success to creativity and willingness to experiment, right? Really willingness to experiment and to launch what then became like a global hit, right? We use Airbnb all over the world. The luck that they came up against was purely noticing a niche, noticing something that could be used or needed in the market. The luck of it all was preparation and finding something that was potentially needed, but wasn't in the market already. Again, noticing potential opportunity. And the last one I noted here is the Seinfeld writing team. And this is not a story that I was familiar with before I was looking this up. But the writers for Seinfeld were people who just constantly brainstormed and they accepted really weird ideas. Like I know that there is an episode all about Soup Nazi, which was apparently a huge hit. But also, if you had heard that name, you go, why the heck would that ever? Why would that be a hit? We have no clue. But because of their willingness to experiment and to just kind of try things out and not be so shackled to the idea of what television or sitcom television needed to be, they were able to create iconic moments that continue to stand the test of time. So their luck came from an openness, from a playful mentality or a playful mindset, and then of course noticing and riffing off of what worked. So if you look at all of those stories of all those people, of all those groups that found massive success, there's a pattern, right? Each of these lucky breaks, the ways that they found these opportunities, it was not random. These individuals, they were primed to see opportunity. They were primed to take action when that opportunity presented itself, and then to keep going despite setbacks. So, last thing here, a couple of mindset shifts to help us cultivate luck. This is for you, but this is also for me. I know that it gets funky sometimes, and we all get in the funks. You've heard my other episodes about it, but I'm sure that you've been there as well. And I am in the same boat. I want to cultivate more luck, more opportunity, more excitement in my life. So let's talk about 3 of these mindset shifts that can help us do so. First things first, like I mentioned earlier, expect good things to happen. Optimism primes you to see possibilities. Something that I'm talking about with my friends is that if one thing can be true, so can many others. So if I'm going to sit here and catastrophize about what could potentially go wrong today, I also have to sit and give some time, some weight to the stuff that could go right. Negativity or pessimism versus optimism, right? Number 2 is stay curious and flexible. Try new paths, explore new ways of doing things, and try new experiments, play a little bit, right? And this is where I go, how can we bring some creativity, some play into this? How can we start doing things? This is where art will really come into play. If you're someone who has not tried something like, I don't know, pottery, rock climbing, singing, dance, these are all really beautiful ways that have such low stakes. So try that new stuff, explore, play a little bit, because I think that curiosity and that flexibility, you're going to see that mirrored out in real life. And the last one I have here is detach from perfectionism. My throat closes up even saying that, because you know that me of all people, I am very attached to perfectionism. It is something that I'm constantly working to undo. But I know, just like I'm sure you do listening, that detaching, learning to treat failure, or learning to treat, don't even want to call it failure, learning to treat outcomes that are not the outcomes you wanted more as data, but not a verdict or a death sentence. Learn to treat them as data. I honestly, I should pull in from my own life. When I have clients who are writing an offer, writing an offer on a house, when we write that offer, just because our offer is not accepted or just because they choose somebody else does not mean that we are not worthy of getting a house, does not mean that we wrote a bad offer necessarily, does not mean that we won't win the next one, right? There's a lot of other things that go into this, but I constantly am encouraging clients to look at the loss as data. It helped us understand really what the interest was in this price point. It helped us understand what types of terms and details other offers were including or weren't including. And lastly, it helps us learn what better to do next time. And if I can, it helps us understand what's really important, because I think sometimes people lose on things like houses, or they don't get the opportunity they wanted, but it makes it very clear what they did want, right? Like when I don't get an opportunity, when I lose, quote unquote, an opportunity for a speaking gig, if I'm kind of fine with it. It sort of teaches me like, yeah, I honestly, I can't really be, accepting speaker gigs when I'm in the middle of a season that I'm in right now. Or yeah, that gig actually didn't feel as aligned with me and my brand as I would have liked it to. So I feel a little relief. Alternatively, when I miss out on something and I'm feeling kind of bummed, it helps me go, wow, okay, I actually do really care about this topic. I really do care about this piece. Maybe perhaps I should start to develop a new program that's directed at that type of an audience. Or maybe perhaps I should sit down and rewrite or rework a couple pieces of my workshop so that it really resonates, right? It's data. It isn't a verdict. So for the next week, I I would like all of us, come with me if you'd like, to write down one thing each day that went right, no matter how small. Okay. And the reason I want us to do this is because if you are like me, I am constantly looking for proof. And oftentimes I'm looking for proof about what stuff was wrong. If I'm honest, I'm looking for proof about what things went wrong. And we know that's just a protection mechanism. So let's change it, shall we? I want to write down the stuff that went right. I want to write down the stuff that went in my favor, that worked in my favor, because I would like my brain to start noticing more wins. And I'd like it to start noticing like the more opportunity. And yeah, I want it to start noticing more luck. So why don't you join me in that? Okay. So that, my friends, is the luck mindset. Training your brain to notice, to expect it, and then to act upon it when you do see it. The next episode of this series, this Luck Laboratory series, we're going to explore how your network and your environment dramatically influence luck. Okay. It is not about how many people you know, it's about who knows you and how you show up. Okay. That's on next week. If you liked this episode, please come back to next week episode to hear me kind of continue talking about this topic. If you want more backstory about this mindset and sort of how it came about, the first episode was done earlier in the season. I believe it's called Lucky Bitch, if I'm not mistaken. And other than that, thank you, wherever and whenever you are listening. If you have any questions or any feedback about the podcast, please do not hesitate to reach out. A share or a review is super helpful for how the algorithm finds us and how people find this podcast. And with that, thank you, wherever and whenever you are listening. I will talk to you next week. Bye.